today we're gonna go over how to do the octopus tentacles. So first I'm just gonna show you guys how to do the back loop only decrease. We're gonna use the first method that I used if you watched the other video with how to decrease, but we're gonna do it in the back loop only. So this is our front loop here that's closest to us. Here is our back loop. So we're gonna go between the stitches and grab the back loop only. Now with this back loop only decrease, we cannot do the invisible decrease because it will not work. So we're gonna regularly decrease it. So we're gonna go under that back loop only, yarn over, pull through, go through that next back loop only, yarn over, pull through, and then we're gonna complete the stitch, yarn over and pull through all three. And then we're gonna get this nice front loop that's left hanging out here, which is exactly what we want to complete the tentacles. So let's do one more. So we're gonna go between that stitch and grab the back loop, yarn over, pull through, go between the stitches again, yarn over, pull through. So now we've got 3 on our hook. We're gonna yarn over and pull through all 3. And you're gonna get this nice front loop ridge here all the way around your work. So let's do a few more here. Back loop, yarn over, pull through, back loop, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3. So you're gonna do this 8 times around your work to get, and then you will end up with 16 of these front loops only. All right, so I'm gonna work my way the rest of the way around here, and I will meet you back at the end of the row. All right, now that we've worked our way all the way around, I'm just gonna pull my hook out here so I can show you guys easier. We've got this nice ridge all the way around of those front loops, which is what we're gonna need for the tentacles. And this is gonna go nice and flat once we close it too, which I'll show you in a second. I just wanted to show you guys this first. So because we are working in the round, these are not gonna meet up on the same level. You're gonna have one that's slightly lower and one that's slightly higher. That's perfectly fine. It will not be noticeable at all once you have the tentacles on. So if you're wondering why that doesn't line up, it's because we're working in a spiral. So we're gradually building on top of what we've already done. And that is why they don't line up quite the same. All right, so now before we move on to the tentacles, I'm also gonna show you guys how I put the eyes on and stuff and close up the bottom. All right, so I have this little guy started that needs eyes and stuffing. So I'm gonna show you how to do it right on your nice fluffy soft yarn. All right, so to count your rows, you're gonna start with this, either your magic circle or your chain 2, and you're gonna count that as 1. So it's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. So I'm just gonna kind of pop them in. You can follow the pattern or pop them in wherever you'd like. But if you want to place them exactly where the pattern says, that's how you count your rows to place them. I've already gone and done the tentacles on this one. I've done it a little bit out of order. I made it late last night and I was a little bit lazy and didn't want to get up and grab eyes and stuffing. So yours will not look like this when you put the eyes on. It will look just kind of like this open circle, like this one. So I'm just gonna pop the eyes in here. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna push them through between 2 stitches, and I'm just gonna kind of pop them in and then take a look at it. So I don't know, maybe I want them a little closer. No, I don't quite like that. Maybe let's try them a little lower. Let's drop them a row. So you can play around with these. You can place them wherever you'd like. You don't have to place them where the pattern says. So I really like to look at them nice and low. If you do want to stitch the smile and the cheeks on this guy, you will need to put them up a little higher. So you have room to stitch your smile and put your cheeks on. But personally for these guys, I like to do them really low and not bother with the smile or cheeks. So that is all personal preference on your end. So once they're in and you like where they are, you're going to push on them to expose the back. And you want to make sure none of the other rows are in the way from the back of this. You're going to take the little plastic washer and you're going to put it on, and you're just going to hold the sides of the plastic washer and push the eye through, and it'll click into place like that. We're going to do the same thing with the other one here. So this will be the same on all pieces that have eyes if you're choosing to use the safety eyes. All right, so you're going to pop it, oops, you're going to pop it on the end, hold the sides of it, and push the washer on. Now, if your stitches end up a little looser, you may run the risk of being able to pull it out through the front. My suggestion for that is work on your tension. You want to try and get them nice and snug so the eyes don't pull through. If you're going to give it to a little one to play with, maybe test the eyes first, give them a nice tug, make sure that you can't pull them through so it doesn't become a choking hazard. If you're not confident or not comfortable giving the little one your work with the safety eyes for fear that they might pull through, then you can always opt to stitch them on. In your DIY kits, you guys will all have these materials here. So you'll have the tapestry needle, you'll have the safety eyes, you'll have a stitch marker, and you'll also get some extra thread here for embroidering. So you can always embroider the eyes and the cheeks and whatnot on instead, just in case, if it makes you feel a little safer. And I'll go through in another video how to embroider the facial features on as well. But yeah, so next you're going to stuff your work. We'll go back over to this one. We're going to stuff it and then we're going to close it. So with stuffing, what I like to do, you guys will all have, if you've gotten one of the DIY kits, you'll have this nice little baggie of stuffing. It will probably be like the jar of peanuts when you open it. So I'm going to open it kind of carefully here, and it's all going to kind of ooze out. So we're going to take our stuffing. For this little guy, I won't need this much. So I'm going to take a little bit at a time, and I'm just going to kind of poke it into the middle. And you can stuff things as light or as firm as you want. You just want it to, the shape to look even. So you don't want to have it really hard on one side and squishy on the other, and then it'll kind of make it look lopsided. All right, so I kind of like to tuck in into the sides, just so it kind of stays in there as I'm closing. So now, how to close. We have our loop here. Then we are going to cut our yarn, or snap it. This yarn is a lot easier to cut with scissors. You can snap it, but it is hard on the hands. This yarn, however, it is pretty easy to break it off in your hands with enough force. But again, scissors is safer. Save your hands. So we've got our loop here. We've cut the end. So now we're just gonna pull this loop until that tail comes through. Give it a little bit of a tug so it tightens up that last stitch. We're gonna put our tail through the end of the tapestry needle here. All right, and now we're gonna sew the end closed. So what I like to do is go through each of the stitches in the front loop only to close off my work. So we're gonna go under this front loop as if I was continuing crocheting around in my piece, and pull it through, and then go from the inside back to the outside, again just under the front loop. and then we're going to go back in. So you're just going in and out all the way around through that last row of stitches that we did, or for in the case of the octopus here, it would have been your back loop only decreases. All right, and we're going to work all the way around till we get back to where we started. And of course you can use your stitch marker as well, just to remember where the first stitch in the previous yarn in the previous row was. So to close this now, we don't need our tapestry needle right this minute. So I'm gonna kind of push down on the stuffing that's in here, grab this tail and give it a nice pull. So it's gonna close up that hole nice and tight, nice and snug, and it'll look like our first row here. So I have these holes in here currently because we're using the bigger hook with the thinner yarn, the practice yarn that's in your kit. Just so you guys can see the stitches and whatnot easier, and this is what you'll have to practice with. But it's just easier to show you guys the stitches on it. So we've got this nice front loop only row, or sorry, back loop only decrease row that's created these front loop ridge here all the way around. And now this part here is relatively flat, which is exactly what we want. So now that we've closed our bottom, in my patterns I usually say secure and hide the tail. So how do I do that? So I'm going to put my thread back on my needle here, and how I secure it is we've pulled this nice and tight. So in the stitch beside the last one that it came out, I'm gonna go under this stitch or anywhere close to where your yarn last came out. And I'm gonna pull that through, and I'm gonna make sure I keep a loop up. So then I'm gonna put the needle back through this loop that we kept up and pull that tight to make a tiny little knot, which you will not see when you're using the right hook to yarn gauge. So now that I've done this, now I need to hide this tail. So I'm gonna go in to where I just made the knot, and I'm gonna poke it through anywhere in the work that it comes out. And I'm gonna pull it through, pull it a little snug, not so snug that it's gonna make a big dimple in your work, because you don't want that, but snug enough that the whole tail comes through. And then this is where you're gonna cut your yarn nice and as close to the body as possible without cutting the stitches that you've made. All right, so now let's do the tentacles. So you're gonna grab your yarn. You're going to pick any of these front loop stitches that are left on your piece. There's no rhyme or reason to where you need to start. So I am personally going to start at this one here, that's the end of it, that's higher than all the rest. So I'm going to wiggle my hook underneath that front loop stitch. Then I am going to take this yarn. I am going to put it over my hook. I am going to pull through. So then the new yarn is the loop on my hook. I am going to chain one. Then I'm going to do a single crochet in that same stitch. Now, the single crochet is optional. You can just work your chain 3, but I like to do it just to make it a little secure. So we're going to chain 3. This counts as 1 stitch for this row. Then we're going to work 4 double crochets into this exact same stitch that we just started with. So how to double crochet? We're going to yarn over first before we go into the stitch. We're going to go under that front loop. We're going to yarn over, pull through. Now we have 3 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the next 2. Now let's go over that again. So we're going to yarn over before we go under the stitch. So we have 2 on our hook before we go through. We're going to go through the stitch. We're going to yarn over, pull through. Now we end up with 3 on here. So we're going to yarn over again. We're going to pull through just the first 2, and we'll have 2 again on our hook, and we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 again. So now we have 1, 2, 3. We need 5 of these posts in total. So I'm going to do 2 more double crochets. All right, so now we have 5, and how we're going to count them is we're going to count each of these posts. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. So now I say pull your hook out of your working loop and go back into the top of the chain 3. So how I do that is I pull this to make my working loop a little bit bigger so I don't lose it or I don't accidentally pull out my stitches by accident. So then I'm going to count back 1, 2, 3, 4, and here's my chain 3. I'm going to pop this into the top of the chain 3 here, and then I'm going to grab this working loop and put it on to the hook here. Now pull that nice and snug. So then I'm going to use these 2 loops to make a slip stitch. So all I'm going to do is keep that working loop on my hook and pull through the top of this chain 3 stitch. So then it kind of sandwiches the ends together. Then we're going to chain 1, and we're going to slip stitch in that next front loop only stitch. So this will be the one that's down a row. So it'll be a little awkward to do this first one. So we're going to grab just that front loop and we're going to slip stitch here. All right. And then we're going to do, this tail is in my way. We are going to do 5 double crochets in the next front loop only stitch. So we're going to yarn over, go through, yarn over, pull 1 up, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That's 1. And we're going to do 4 more. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we have 5 in total again. All right, and to make sure, we're going to count our posts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we're going to go back into our first double crochet in this stitch. So let's count our stitches back on the top to see where we place our hook. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to insert our hook into this first stitch. Then we are going to put our working yarn on our hook and pull that nice and snug and make our slip stitch. Chain 1 and slip stitch into the next loop. And we're going to continue that all the way around until you have 8 teeny little tentacles. And how we end off this row is we're going to cut our yarn after the last slip stitch, pull it through, and you're going to tie a couple knots with that end to the end that you started this row with, and then we're going to hide them. Now how we hide this one, if you have enough length here to thread it through your needle and poke it through, by all means go ahead and do that. I didn't leave enough length here on purpose so I could show you guys how to do it this way. So what I do is the opposite for this one, is I take my hook, I poke it through somewhere up above, and I try and keep it, you can kind of see my hook going under the stitches here. I keep it as close to the stitches as possible so I'm not pulling out stuffing when I do this. I'm going to pop my hook out as close to these knots that I've made as possible. Then I'm going to put both of the ends, let's pretend this is an end, around my hook, and I'm going to pull it back through that stitch I came out of. Again, keeping it as close to the stitches as possible to not pull out any stuffing. And I didn't do a very good job because I grabbed a bunch of stuffing, but we're going to pull them out and then you would cut them here. And if you have stuffing come out like this, you have 2 options. You can just kind of pull it very lightly like this to try and get it out of the way. Or you can take your tapestry needle and just poke it all back inside. And that is how you make the tentacles on your little octopus friend. Thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe to my channel.